Hey everybody, it's Bust with Battles with Bust number 410, and today we're doing battle with Misfortune Vayne. And so this Misfortune Vayne deck, it's got a little sizzle to it. It's been quite fun to play. And so the way that this came about is I was looking to port over the Vayne Jarvan deck that we played in Eternal. That was a Freylord based deck that had a lot of forge elements to it. You're trying to load up the Night Ranger Defector with a weapon, forge it a bunch of times, attack with it a bunch of times, cataclysm it on the opposing turn. Everything kind of tied in and cycled around the Defector, but you can't play a Hearthblood Mender outside of Eternal. And so I started searching around for answers and other things to play, and I just kind of put in a Scrutinizing Sergeant on a whim as a replacement in the 5-cost space. So much to my surprise, I played the Scrutinizing Sergeant at some point, and Vayne pops up as an option. I was like, oh crap, that's that's a pretty big deal. I thought this guy could only hit units, and so being able to hit champions off this guy was kind of a game breaker and a big deal. And so I immediately started searching out what other high-powered champions could we play in this space to take advantage of with the Scrutinizing Sergeant. Came out, had some fun with action, but I wasn't really happy about the power level we got out of action. It didn't feel like enough to really warrant the 5-mana investment, but Misfortune fit in that space very well. She's one of the highest powered 3-cost cards in the game, and she's been working quite nicely in this deck. And so, with that as kind of the base, I didn't feel like it was really just enough to carry on with those small things there, just being in here searching out for just the champions, and I wanted to have other summon cards that work strongly as well. And so, the thing with this. The playability from the Scrutinizing Sergeant is it does allow summons to happen. So if we do manage to summon a Piltover Castaway, it's going to come into play with the equipment and give us the attune. If we summon the Mirai Warden, it's also going to summon an additional unit, so we can get 3 units out of a single summon from the Sergeant. And then with the Durand Sculptor and the Petricite Broadwing, these units hit the board before the Sergeant hits the board. And so if we hit a Broadwing off of the Sergeant, it's going to have Challenger. And then if we play the Sculptor off of the Sergeant will come into play as a 3/4. And so, a very interesting and powerful collection of abilities. A lot of strength coming in out of the Scrutinizing Sergeant. He hits all of the units within the deck quite powerfully. And so, with that in mind, we're going to kind of push away from the more classical the more classical Misfortune Quinn style of scouts and look to actually hone in on this Ranger Knight Defector. And so with this, we are wanting a little bit more presence out here with these equipment. So we're going to have the Combat Cook to help complement the Piltover Castaway. But the big thing that you get out of these Night Ranger Defectors, at least in the Freylord version of this, was using the Darken equipment. And so the bummer kind of, coming into Bilgewater is you lose out on playing the good Darken. You can experiment a little bit with the Bilgewater one. It gives +1 attack and fearsome. It's not my favorite one, although the flip side is fairly strong. The card that we're going to be playing in that space is going to be Barnacles. And so this is a reasonably powerful equipment. It didn't get a ton of spotlight in the previous set. The coin package all basically boiled down to just playing set and not really playing anything out of Bilgewater, but the brash ability coming onto this makes the Defector reasonably evasive, and adding these coins to our hand can be quite effective and powerful. In many of my practice games, I've sat around with 3 and 4 coins in your hand. Makes it very easy to play Champion Strength and some of these other cards in the same turn. And so you can play a Scrutinizing Sergeant in a 4-drop, you can play a Champion Strength in another unit. Picking up the coins off of the Barnacles is quite interesting and strong, and it feels like a ample replacement for that loss of the Darkened Spear. And so, this is the deck. This is what we're going to be doing battle with today. Let's go ahead and jump on in. I checked in on the pay-to-win price. We're all paid up with this one. There's only one card in here. The Scrutinizing Sergeant himself has not been turned premium, but he's an epic, so we kind of watch ourselves with those. But everything else in here, all premiumed up. You can tell we like to play our Demacian-based friends and our Scout-based friends when you open up this deck on like day 5 of the format, and you're like, oh, cool, everything's already premium. And so definitely winning there. All right, the battles are beginning. So what do we got? Speaking of the coins in the Bilgewater half, coming up against Set. Or not Set. Wrong one. Wrong guy. Coming up against Jack. So we'll see what this has. I assume that this is going to be a back alley bar based combo deck, but we'll see what kind of shenanigans we get into. So I'm actually going to hang on to the Ranger Knight Defector. I don't recommend this in a lot of spots, given that it's just a little bit expensive, and we're also keeping an equipment to go along with it. And so we're really kind of counting on a slow game from our opponent to get all of these things on board. But as we're up against this like P and Z based removal, I feel like their units are all going to be fairly crappy. We might be able to just take this slow and get him down later in the game and not feel too bad about it. So this is where it can be a little problematic, right? We picked up Vayne, but we can't play her if we want to use the Defector next turn. And so we'll just add in the Elkin, see if he survives. I didn't feel like he was strong enough bait for the Durandi Sculptor to summon out in a removal, so I felt like we could just play him a little later, see if we can't actually get him down as a 2-3. So we did miss out on a couple of points of damage with this angling, but let's see if we can't still fight through. So, all right. Defector ready for battle. Let's get it loaded up with these knuckles. Definitely big enough to go toe-to-toe with a Jack. And so hopefully we can really get some big punches in here. If opponent has a removal spell, he can come in and maybe take down this Defector a little bit later, but as it stands, that Tough is doing some work. All right, so we're going to get both hits in. Looks like we'll get to pick up a coin with the Defector, and so that'll kind of put us in a spot where we can do some interesting stuff next turn, where we play, say, Scrutinizing Sergeant, top off with a Vayne, and then be able to coin, get 2 mana, and then Barnacles up the Vayne, have her be a little bit protected from the likes of things like Aftershock. So we'll see if it comes together or not. The Mischievous Mirai. That's a scary one. That's a scary one. What do we got? Misfortune does turn up. Welcome to the board, lady. And so this is one of the scarier moments with these cards that we're playing, right? We can, just going ham on our board. We don't have any way to just kind of directly deal with this Mischievous Mirai. And so she has me a little worried in terms of what we're going to have to deal with here. But I'm going to go ahead and load up the Barnacles. I don't feel like we're going to be playing Champion Strength next turn with just 1 unit on board, and so I want to just get as big as we can here, and then look to play the Champion Strength 2 turns from now. So we'll add in the Elkin. We're going to add in Vayne. Hopefully we can survive just a little bit, since we can't actually do anything about this Mirai.
Monsters still lurk in Demasia's every shadow.
I'm curious how good decks like this are right now. The Evelynn deck is so bad at actually coming out and being interactive that there's some opportunity for a deck like this to shine. It's just those Zolani draws coming down on turn 7 can be such a deal breaker. All right, though. I mean, this is going fine. We're getting to at least take away a lot of his spell count, and so in terms of just blasting us with that big OTK finisher, may not be able to do it. I mean, we're not excited about this Seraphine and this Mirai getting to hang out on the board, but we have at least a bit of a shot here. Ooh, another Scrutinizing Sergeant. Just what we needed to try and pop off with this Champion Strength next round. Oh, we're gonna get domed though. What I'm afraid is going to happen is even as we go into this next turn, even if he doesn't like flurry off this turn and our units get to survive, whenever we put the Champion Strength on the stack, his spells are going to be able to go.
That was great.
So it was a confront. Now he's added Quick Attack and Challenger. I think this probably puts a spell in his hand as well.
All right, center stage. Sing it with me now.
Why is he attacking with Seraphine? I'm just gonna let that Seraphine damage through. I guess any spell would probably just kill our Elkin anyways, but I think we want to just be a little careful there. And I'm going to go with the width. We just have to have something go right at this point, and so if he has the AoE to come in and take us down, fine. But this is going to give us the most options to have a really strong champion strength here. Here comes the flurry of spells. We'll just concede if he comes in and kills off our units. This game was realistically done 2 or 3 turns ago, but this is our final shot, our last chance before we call it a day. All right, max out on those poros in hand. Interesting. Oh, this bullshit's running around now. Okay. Okay. So there's just no way we can get a lethal this turn, right? We have to contend with the Sump Monument now, so we'll just go for as much damage as we can, try and load him up on those puff caps, but could be 2 or 3 turns before we're able to have anything happen. Alright, what do we got him up to? 52 puff caps at the moment. Go ahead and send in this other attack. I didn't make note of the play. If you're not familiar with what we're able to do with these tumbles and with the cataclysms, is if we have a scout unit on board, we can use that as a way to get additional attacks in and get that attack token back. So if it's on our opponent's attack token and they have and we do a tumble on a scout, that'll count as a scout attack. We'll get the attack token back when we can hit with everybody else. So very, very powerful ability there.
Nice to meet you. I'm Isla.
All right, opponent had a second Mirai. He's only up to like 3 or 4 damage a turn with the puff caps, and so just has literally infinite time here. All right, all the poros coming to town, I guess.
Nailed that one. I'll be damned.
All right, losing all of our friends on board. Sad day for certain. All right. Well, I have to feel like opponents nowhere near doing any cheek squeezing right now. It's so brutal. Like I've really been waiting for this Sump Monument to pop off as a thing. Just does so well at shutting down so many decks. Alright, though. Misfortune has been removed. I hope y'all weren't wanting to see more than 2 games, because as much as this game should be over, it's still going on. So at least all these little poros he's generating can't block our brash units, right? And so we can load our dudes up with brash, maybe connect in for a few more points of damage. I don't know, get 10 more puff caps in the deck and not really change anything, but... And these are the spots that I was really worried about happening with the printing of cards like Sump Monument. Is if, say, you're playing a burn deck and you get your opponent down to 4 and you're getting ready to cast that Decimate, like, the Sump Monument just cancels any ability to win the game, and so it's a really frustrating card to have come about.
Let's hear it.
Nice 0 damage attack for the round. I dig it. So is this where we want to tumble, right? This is a spot to where we can actually get in with 4 points of damage. Load him up with another 16 puff caps. Holy shit, he just gives up on it? Oh man, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. It's like we didn't even run into that ultimately frustrating thing to where, you know, say we managed to hit him for like 300 puff caps, but from the way that the random distribution went about, some card only had maybe like 4 puff caps on it, and he gets an extra draw, and then he really avoids that one card that has 17 on it. It's gonna, I don't know. It's, as much as I hate the RNG that comes out of the Seraphine deck, just adding in the insult to injury, the insult to injury one with the sump monument is, oh, I don't even want to think about it anymore. Just get that nonsense out of here. Alright, next battle though, up against Viego. Bilgewater, have to assume that he's playing the Husk card. I don't think decks like this are really gonna pan out. I don't think that the Encroaching Mists getting the bonus is really enough to warrant playing these like additional things, and so I mean, we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong with that one and just don't give the card enough credit, but like I think the Evelynn deck is exceptionally strong. The Reaver's Row deck has a little bit of teeth to it, but beyond that, I feel like you're just you're going a little too far.
This all we got? Hey, I've done more with less.
Alright, let's see what we can do on this board. No need to open attack. If he's got a Kamaver and Soldier, we still have the means to get a good hook and take down the Prince. Calling Strike we can't answer, but still got a good attack for the round. And then we'll look to start getting the Defector and the Misfortune on board from here. Picking up an equipment here. I dig it. And Spell Shield. Okay. He's 2 turns away from Viego, so hopefully it's not too painful there. And oh boy, I love seeing that heavy metal come in before we drop the Knuckles onto the Defector. Alright, I think we gotta come in and just swing for 1 though. It just the chance of a really powerful unit coming in this round are just too much to ignore, and so really powerful unit in double trouble. Not quite what I had in mind.
No prey, no pay.
So let's add in the Misfortune, keep the mana back for form up, just attacking into these ephemerals. Doesn't seem like a winning play, but with the Brash, he can't actually block with these low health units. Now, for getting out of the turn, I would feel kind of okay playing Durandi Sculptor, but as it stands with our mana, we can still add the Sculptor and the Cook next turn. No problems. So consider that. Steam comes in. It's like, how many more summons can you get for the round? The Defector is done for, right? He's just going to come out and die, but if we add the Scrutinizing Sergeant, if opponent has an additional summon, then it's going to hit the Sergeant and protect our other guys from these steam hits. So let's just keep passing. We'll just wait on this combat to end. We do have the coin, right? Holy shit. Wow, he didn't even try to take the Defector down. I don't know about that. So do we have time to play this other one? The main concern with this turn is if he just adds in Viego. I guess we'll just have to go toe-to-toe with the big guy if he comes down. Interesting, interesting. What is in his hand to where this nonsense is happening?
Close your eyes.
Oh shit. Get snapped, my dude. Get snapped. Okay. Things are getting real out here. There's the ruination. It feels like that. That's so strange. All right. I mean, he let us get so far before that actually came in. So we can just win the game now, right? We can add. Do we have how much do we have? 6 mana. We're gonna be a couple of attacks short.
I'm one of the good guys, but not that good.
Let's go ahead and send in Misfortune. All right, well, there you have it. These games been weird. I feel like we've been getting a lot of these games to where if opponent just kind of saw the other side of the board, they'd be a little less trigger happy on that concession button. But it's helping us get up to Masters, you know. All right, up to battle against the Evelynn deck. This is not a good matchup. Just a little FYI. They're able to just get much bigger than us, and Scouts is a deck that doesn't manage that well. And so you can still find a lot of hands to where they don't pop off too hard with the stats, and then you're able to come in and deal a bunch of damage with a. You deal a bunch of damage with the champion strength, but those games aren't super common. So here I'm just going to keep passing. I'm going to drop the Misfortune and try and get the Defector going 2 turns from now. It's just the highest power play that we're going to be able to put together, especially as he's just out here ramping up with Siren Song. And so, Glad in Misfortune. I don't want to protect her with Form Up. It's just too slow. We need to get the Defector going next turn with the equipment, and so if he had the hate spike for her, I was just going to let it fall. And he did have the Nutter draw here to start with the Salter to immediately hit the board. Not good. But let's see how Team Defector lines up here. He would have snapped off an Evelynn, I think, and so might at least be safe in that sense. Okay. This is actually pretty good for us, right? So he's taken this path to where he's going to make 1 super unit next turn, right? He's got... He could have sacrificed off the Husk, but he didn't. He sacrificed off the Salter. So the next unit that he plays is just going to be gigantic, but we can just hook whatever that big unit is out of combat, and then maybe attack around for the kill. So if he just plays a single Evelynn next turn, or if he just plays a Kale, then we can do some stuff. If he's gonna be like, LOL, here's the here's that 1 cost thing that has lifesteal, then you know we're probably gonna lose at that point, but. If that's not the case, we might even still be able to attack around it here. Domination. Okay.
You are nothing. Worthless. Don't waste my time. Impressive.
All right. Well, that's a big unit for certain.
Useless.
All right. Now it is a touch awkward with the units that we have in hand. Since we have all of these double summons, but we only have 3 spaces on board, I'm just going to go with the Scrutinizing Sergeant and then probably attack immediately afterwards. Low power hit in the Durandi Sculptor, though. But as it's lined up, should be just enough, right? It's a little 10-piece nugget right there. Oh, no, don't hook those husks, though. Got to be hooking in these big boys. Big girls, I should say. The Domination and Vora. All right. Taking a game off the boogeyman. GG. On to the next one. And so again, that's not a spectacular matchup, but you can do stuff like that, right? I mean, if he would have had a big Divine Clerk, we would never had a chance. But if they have those really tall draws, it's like as you're spending 8 mana to not physically put a unit on the board, as you have happen when you play 2 Siren songs, it just opens you up to those opportunities to attack around that super unit. And so we certainly wouldn't have survived much longer. He was definitely about to take that game over, but just a huge investment in unit strength, but not so much with board presence. Right. Good stuff. On to the next one, up against Jhin Gnar. Curious what's coming at us with this this bunch of funsters. And so taking at this, I'm trying to stop and think if I want to hang on to this Ranger Knight Defector. This is a deck that's not going to be able to interact with it well, and we are on the even attacks, but we don't have an equipment to go along with it. And so I'm just going to go ahead and send it away, see if we can't find a little bit more early game presence here. And, you know, reasonable Scout's draw, even without the big turns from the Defector here. Going to lead off with the Mirai Warden. It's going to give us the chance to do the most damage this round if he doesn't have a play, or if he plays something like Conchologist. I think the Saga Seeker was a bit of a turd, but maybe he'll come into action on a following turn once Misfortune's on board. We were talking about the Siren song. That's another thing I tried here recently is you're looking at a lot of the units that are in the kind of classical Scouts decks between playing Mirai Wardens and playing whatever the Scout thing is, the 4-drop that puts a 1-drop on the board. You have a lot of opportunities and things to hit with the Siren song, but and I don't feel like these are real decks when you're
Fortune favors the bold.
not like tied into the husks with Evelynn or, you know, to a lesser degree the Aatrox style decks, but nonetheless, interesting stuff here. And so, I mean, this is kind of a bummer in terms of units we're able to put onto the board. We're really just going to have to look to getting into turn 6 and playing Champion Strength at this point. And so I'm going to add in the Piltover Castaway. Fixin' 5000 is the perfect addition to our hand. I don't expect this unit to survive. Right? He's probably going to come in and just pop the Piltover Castaway with a Pokey Stick or something, but we're kind of, you know, done with attacking for this turn. He takes us up to the full 3 banks, so next turn we can play Scrutinizing Sergeant, and then 2 turns from now we'll just drop the Champion Strength. What do we got in here? Just a Mirai Warden. That's a bit worrisome against this matchup. I keep using the word Pokey Stick, but you know, they don't get physical access to the card Pokey Stick, and so, well, he does with this Gnar hit. He's gonna get it either way. Let's just make him wait on the units. I mean, it's tough for this next turn. It's like as 4 of our units have 1 health, I ultimately worry quite a bit that that we're gonna run into a problem next turn with him just having like kills on 2 of our units. So let's do this. I'm going to pivot away just a little bit. Gonna move away from the Champion Strength ideal. I'm gonna add in the Ranger Knight. Now we have, you know, reasonably powerful dudes on the board. Uh-oh. So how do we feel about just playing Champion Strength next turn? I'm kind of okay with it. You know, I think we can still make this attack
I am ready.
with the Saga Seeker. He's not going to want to block this thing with Gnar. I assume that this probably just blasts in a lot or picks up one of these smaller trades. I think this is okay. We'll get to do our thing at some point, right? The right opening will make itself apparent at some point. All right, all these equipment are a chance to kind of lift ourselves from the brink, so we can look to put a Knuckles onto Misfortune, put the Fix'em 5000 onto the Saga Seeker, and then we can pull back that Saga Seeker equipment onto the Defector. I think I'm pretty okay with these angles. So let's protect Misfortune first. This takes a lot of work to take her down at this point. Then he's gonna take the hook into the Scrutinizing Sergeant. We could follow up with the Castaway from there. Oh, is Jhin just gonna kill her?
I knew you'd find your mark eventually.
All right, let's stop being clever. Right? He's got to at least make some kind of attack this turn. Now Misfortune's gonna die because of the Jhin shot. Arai Warden as well. Okay. We can still refill. Alright, something with health. Shepherd's Authority it is. Sucks to give up the Fish-a-Whack here, but I think that's probably a necessity. And we can add in the Broadwing. We should have probably added the Broadwing in first.
I have prepared something very special.
It's all.
I was always mortal!
Is the champion strength even worth it at this point? Like, I don't think it is. I'm just worried about the amount of stuns that he's able to throw down at us. Let's move away. Maybe we've just been entirely too unaggressive this game, but just so easy for the Bandle City deck to have a bunch of stuns. Like, I know that they can come at us from Jhin, but the stuns that come from Jhin are all pretty slow. But even with like one removal spell and one just like stun from hand at slow speed, stopping 2 of our units and then only having 1 or 2 units on board, that's, you know, very easily blockable from the perspective of these
I will allow for no
from these units. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I don't know about this, fam. I don't know about this. Does he run out of space? Like, does he still get all the Riptide Wreck shots with the Jhin on board? Looks like he's still getting 7.
I knew you'd find your mark eventually.
Alright. We'll give up on that one. I don't know. It's a tough space to be in. I ultimately just feel like YOLOing out that champion strength was just not the way to go about it. It's too easy for that deck to just have a stun or a removal spell, and stopping 2 of our 4 units is just making it unbearable. Especially like if we had a bunch of overwhelm units or something, then that would be one thing, but it's just not where it was. That was a weird game. Good to know more of what we're up against. I guess they're going to be using Riptide Rex and Condense, so you can play multiple Riptide Rexes for that big blast thing. Okay, interesting. All right, next battle though, up against the Aatrox Vayne. A little scary. Again, we don't have a ton of interactivity in our deck, so if they're able to land a a Quinn bird with the quick attack hook, then we're gonna really struggle in this space. But it's all gonna come down to if they have a start that we're not capable of interacting with. Alright, gotta think on this real hard. Many opportunities. We'll just go ahead and offer up the trade. I'd like to... The thing I'm kind of envisioning is if we're able to come in and kind of clear out the board, it's less blockers for the Defector. We really need this Knuckles Defector combo to pop off this game. And if we can just keep his board cleared out, make him start blocking the Defector with better units, then I think that that's a reasonable path. You also only need to get one more game at this rate, though. out here making the big decisions. Yeah, all right. So he has a harp, but he doesn't have a challenger. I just expect that there's not going to be any birds in our near future. Such a low value unit to put the harp on. I guess you could have two harps though. That's always a possibility.
I sculpt what others only dream of.
But definitely don't want to get too crazy in these combats. I don't want this steadfast Elkin to die as he adds in a bird. You know, that's where the scary times start. So let that guy just hang out at home for a bit.
My work.
So how bad is this if he just passes? Right? I think we can still add the Defector. Because he's going to have the 4 health tough. And so the ultimate worry is he has another cheap play. And he gets to load the Darkened Harp onto the bird and get a good attack in. But I don't think it's... we have to worry with the Defector. But there is a very real chance that he just passes the turn there. And if we lose out on our opportunity to get these stats on board, we're going to be hurting. So Defector number 2, we'll drop the Knuckles after this. See if we can't turn this board around. As it stands, these little bros can't block Brash Boy, and so we'll see if the Brash comes into play. Not a ton of units out of this deck that can actually block our Brash plays, and so curious to see how this goes. I don't think this is a deck that plays combat tricks. I don't remember. Catch makes sense, I guess. We still get the dome one for 10. Okay. I like it. Curious if this isn't one of these spots we should be attacking with everybody. It's like if he has another combat trick to block our big boy, then we would get in for 4. But if he doesn't have a trick and we just lose out on our Elkin for an additional 2 points of damage, it doesn't sound world class. Alright, the next turn we're really in the spot where we're just looking for damage, right? So I kind of look towards the Shepherd's Authority in this space. But I don't think it's gonna really get us there.
I am doom.
And we're 1 coin short of adding in the other combat cook, so we'll just drop the Mirai Warden.
Hello, new best friend.
So we can do... Fuck. I was hoping we'd hit an ephemeral. As we're developing this width here, I was really hoping we would hit a useless unit. Alright, well, we have to make the scout attacks now. Like, with him being at 12, getting a block with Aatrox and a 2 heal off of Aatrox, there's just no way that we're going to that we're going to attack around him with width and get a kill this turn.
Those who kill innocents are no more than fiends.
Guess we're in for another scout rake. I was really hoping to hit quick attack on that one, but didn't turn up.
A slight adjustment.
And the Knuckles. I think we want to put him on the Durandi Sculptor. The only thing that would be able to block the Sculptor at this point would be Vayne. And she's done, right? It's very kind of like psychologically like the Sculptor is a high-valued unit, and it's something that you want to take off the board quickly. But if we lose her at this point, it's not really a big deal.
Needs a finishing touch.
And so I'm happy enough to trade her off for Vayne.
You are nothing.
Very well.
Look at that, not even close to a lethal. Ugh. Now he's gonna have the opportunity to start making tumble plays with the Darkened Harp. It's ultimately pretty scary. Okay. But we did get Aatrox off the board. It's one of our potentials for greatness. We can manage one Darken next turn, maybe. I don't feel really good about the Striatu coming in and dropping a bunch of tumbles, though. Interesting, he didn't go for that.
I'm Isla.
You get excited when you have the champion strength in hand and you see these elusives come onto the board, but having the unit that returns back to hand is not particularly ideal.
There is no music as soothing as silence.
I guess we don't have to block, right? So this won't be lethal, but we should get to kill his board, right? It shuts down whatever he's trying to do with Vayne. This is where you can get an opening. Maybe that Scout, Vistayan Disciple will be enough next turn.
Hey, over here!
And this.
Okay, that's what you like to see. Get those big dum-dums out of here. say no thank you. I don't want anything to do with that. Alright, let's see if we can't get these final points of damage in. The Shimon Wind on its own, or the Vistayan Disciple, whatever calling this thing, is going to be a little bit short, right? This will hit for 3, take him down to 4. We can follow up with a Piltover Castaway or something, and ew. That's kind of nasty. Kinda nasty.
You can fix anything with anything. I'll prove it.
I think we're still okay, though. I mean, our attacks here are good. He can drop Striatu next turn, and we can block him, and so we can continue on with this fun. This Giral isn't capable of stopping either of our units at this point, right? Oh, he can take down the tough guy at this point, but still, it's pretty good. This is a must-block situation.
Cannot escape.
He does survive. It just takes a million cards. Sure. Now we're the ones on the back foot, right? Striatu's gonna come in. A little scary. Ooh. Scrutinizing Sergeant, though. Here to make sure we get enough blockers for the round. What you got for us? Mirai Warden, the only choice. Might be the best choice, getting access to 2 units. Alright, the battles continue, the nonsense goes forward.
Aatrox, where are you?
I got a Darken too. Gets the bird. I wonder why he hasn't just played the World Ender yet. Switched Jaral up into... Does he turn into Aatrox? I was gonna say, I'm not certain what happens. The World Ender doesn't usually work on champions, but I guess it does make sense that it works on Aatrox. Okay. We need like another Mirai Warden or something to try and get out of this. Cataclysm. Our regrets for not taking the our regrets for not taking the Overwhelm unit are huge, but this is still okay-ish. We can Cataclysm into the bird, and then if he hasn't found another another unit, then we can maybe end this one. Nope. Hi, GG. All right, victory snatched from us, but on to the next one. It's gonna be our last one. If you're saying bust, why aren't we getting to 8 games yet? It's because of that guy, and so you can go and talk trash to him. All right, the final battle, the Bilgewater PNZ deck with the Teemo. This should be an aggressive elusives deck coming at us. It's most certainly going to be a Siren Song deck. Again, I think this deck is probably just garbage, but these are the spots as to where I'm not entirely certain the amount of the amount of, say, like additional challengers we should be playing, or if we should be adding in Fish Fight or something, because these decks are running around quite a bit. And as you see things like Acorn come on the board, if you're able to go after him with a Petricite Broadwing, you really take away from a lot of their power. But we're also not developing too many boards to where Petricite, or from where a Challenger Bird's going to come out here and survive. So,
I sculpt what others
not
only
entirely
dream of.
certain how I want to go about it.
Away! To me!
All right, we'll wait. We're about to build up pretty big on this upcoming turn, and so I don't think we want to immediately just trade with the Shell Shocker. We could play Barnacles here onto the Elkin as a way to let it, combat better with the Shell Shocker, but I mean that just doesn't seem worthwhile, as we can wait a turn and get this Defector down. So I do want to go ahead and pick the trade. We have a Champion Strength in hand, but I don't think that we're going to be popping off with it on our turn 6.
The strong don't want mercy.
Getting things going with this Defector first. Maybe we shouldn't have. Right? As your opponent puts another 5-power unit on the board, it does stop the Defector, and so maybe we just have to pivot. I mean, we can add Vayne.
Monsters still lurk in Demasia's every shadow.
Not entirely opposed to just loading the Knuckles up onto her. Put the Tough onto the Elkin. The next turn, we have to take a 3 bank into our turn 6, right? And so we can as it stands right now, like, we want to play Mirai Warden. Mirai Warden is our kind of premier unit in this spot, in the sense that it's going to put 2 units on the board, and so I think we're okay at this space. We have to be able to interact with what he's doing just a little bit.
Prepared for anything.
Alright, Teemo turns up.
Oh,
Mirai Warden it is.
never met anyone like you. Up and at 'em. Armed and ready.
So 11 coming at us is kind of scary, right? And we don't have a lot of choice in what we're able to do here. The Vayne block is super easy. Gotta not die for a moment.
Currents keep me.
A bit underdressed.
So we're gonna be falling to 1 in this spot. It's a bummer. That's a bummer.
Not today.
This Teemo got fucking huge.
Not for everyone.
Alright, well, the champion's strength isn't threatening lethal, and so that's a problem. That's certainly a problem. Alright. I don't know. It's just, I wasn't expecting our units to fall so hard in terms of this. I thought we were going to be able to get the Defector on the board, and him just playing a 5-power unit out of nowhere was really surprising to me. I guess it shouldn't have been that surprising given he had a 2-power Husk on the board, but maybe he didn't. He just played the 1 Siren song, and then the the Taskmaster is what took that up to 2. But nonetheless, good set of games. We can pull this up, talk about it a little bit more. We hit pretty much all of the combos and everything that this deck is trying to pull off, with the exception is we didn't get a very big cycle going with the Ranger Knight Defector and using the Defector along with the Cataclysms and the Tumbles to generate scouts and get a bunch of attacks in. Those games didn't really present themselves, but I think we hit just about everything else with this deck and the things that are going on with it, and I think it's got a lot of power to it. Again, it's, to me, this is a better deck to be taking on than your kind of traditional Scouts deck. I think Scouts is pretty horrifically bad in the current format. Like, doing value plays, adding like Quinn birds to the board just don't exist. And with all of the Husks running around, you don't have the opportunities to actually take those Husks down now. So at least in the past, you could have your challengers on board come in, try and challenge down a 0-1 Husk and get a little bit of value that way. Those plays just don't even exist anymore with the Siren songs running around, and so it's a tough beat for kind of Scouts in general. But I think this is a style of deck that's kind of able to come in and combat those things. And so, is it worthwhile as a ladder grinder right now? I mean, sure. There is a lot of experimentation going on with the Husk decks, and again, I think right now that most of them are just garbage, and it's very easy to kind of say like, oh, here's a 1-drop, let's start including all these 1-cost plays in our deck and really branch out from the Evelynn one, and I just don't think that those are very good. And so we'll see. Maybe I'm just completely wrong in that sense, but if the only Husk deck you're really competing with is the Evelynn deck, then I think this deck is most certainly fine to just take into the ladder, and then it's also potentially strong in best of 3 as a deck, to where if you're just looking to ban out Evelynn, this is going to function very well against the remainder of the field. And so I think it kind of has that aspect going for it as well. And then we'll kind of see what happens in terms of the Siren song, and if it gets nerfed within a month, you're just kind of stuck with it now, right? It's extremely relevant in terms of the upcoming Runeterra opens, and the Mastering Runeterra Open. There shouldn't be a balance patch or a nerf patch before those things hit, and so just being the kind of world that we live in with this going out and about, I'm not entirely certain if a deck like this will find a space to kind of live in that meta. But otherwise, in terms of the deck itself, the only other kind of changes I'm curious about are the Durand Sculptor is kind of in an interesting position, in the sense that it's like an okay play, but we don't really need the stats that much. Like, that's why we're only playing like the 2 copies instead of 3. And I'm curious if it's not better as just another spell or some kind of interactivity. That was like the one thing I feel like we're really lacking over the course of the over the course of the video was just wanting something just a little bit more interactive. And I could definitely see something like cutting out the 2 Durandi Sculptors, adding in another Piltover Castaway, and then going up to 3 form-ups or something. What you tend to have in a lot of these games is you play a 2-drop, and then on turn 3, you can play a Piltover Castaway, attune back that 1 point of mana, and then you have the option to play a form-up, or you have the option to 2-bank into turn 4, and then play a Ranger Knight Defector and have the mana to equip it. And so Durandi Sculptor is just in here since if you don't really play anything in the first 3 turns of the game, you're just going to get smoked by any of the Husk decks, right? If you're just giving them the time to ramp up their stats and you're just banking up mana, not doing anything, you're going to lose all those games. But it's this kind of awkward space to where are 9, 1, and 2 drops enough to really feel like you're coming in and combating those decks hard enough. I haven't really decided in that space. And so it's just a real bummer to roll into turn 3 with a 3-bank and then play a Piltover Castaway, lose out on the attune, and not have any units before it. And so it's tough to really kind of get that in the right order. I mean, the actual thing to do may be actually to just cut a Darken Aegis and a Durand Sculptor, only play 1 Durand Sculptor, and then go up to 3 Castaways and 3 form-ups. That might be just a little bit better, but then you are also in that space to where you're kind of really heavily loading up on 3 drops and not solving that early game problem. But nonetheless, good stuff. Interesting deck. Very powerful with the Scrutinizing Sergeant. It's good to know that he can fish out these champions, and as this is a deck that could potentially branch into the Lands of Eternal, where there might be additional 3-cost or less champions, and getting to double up on them is quite strong with the Sergeant, and so we'll have to keep an eye on him. But very worthwhile to at least know this combo of the Sergeant plus Vayne, since they both live in Demacia, and able to be good friends and fish the Vayne out of the deck. She's typically a card you don't want to play on the 3rd turn of the game anyways. Nonetheless, that is going to do it for us today. So hope everyone enjoyed the video. Hope you maybe learned a thing or two along the way, and you had a good time watching. So this is Bust, and we thank you for being here.